I was hired to clean a museum after hours. I don't think I'm the only one here. I need to say up front that I don't think I did anything wrong. I need you to understand that before you read the rest. My name's Callum Weir, and 3 weeks ago, I was part of a 4-person cleaning crew contracted to deep clean the Holgate Museum of Maritime History in Leith, Edinburgh. The contract was 6 nights, Sunday through Friday, and it paid well above rate because the museum was mid-renovation and the regular maintenance team had walked off the job. Our agency, Bright Star Facilities, didn't explain why. We didn't ask. The money was good, the hours were short, and it was May, which meant the light held until nearly 10, and the mornings came early enough that you never really felt the darkness had weight. I want to be specific about the crew, because it matters. There was me, 31, team lead on paper, which meant I held the keys and the sign-off sheet. There was Danielle Okoye, who was 44 and had been doing contract cleaning longer than I'd been employed anywhere. There was Rory Hess, 26, who talked constantly and well, and who I genuinely liked. And there was Marta Kijek, who was 50-something and quiet in a way that made the rest of us quieter too, which was probably good for all of us. We were not investigators. We were not night guards. We were cleaners with a laminated schedule and a set of access codes and a brief from the museum's operations manager, a man called Petri, who we met once on the Sunday and who gave us a walkthrough that lasted 40 minutes and covered about 10% of the building. The Holgate is not a famous museum. It's a converted bonded warehouse on the waterfront, 4 stories, mostly open-plan galleries with temporary partition walls. The ground floor is permanent collection, model ships, navigation instruments, a reconstructed quarterdeck that smells of linseed oil. First floor was closed for the renovation, which was something to do with the HVAC system. Second floor was a temporary exhibition on Arctic whaling that was mid-install when we started. Third floor was storage, archives, and staff offices. Petrie's walkthrough covered the ground floor in detail, gave us a brief look at the second, and stopped at the stairwell door to the third. Third floor is off limits for now, he said. Active construction zone. You don't need to go up there, and your codes won't work on that door anyway. He said the first floor was also off scope. The partition walls are down. There's exposed ductwork, and the flooring's up. Nothing to clean. Don't bother. So our job was ground floor and second floor, 6 nights, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. That was the brief. That was all of it. The first night was fine, normal, even pleasant, in the way that empty public buildings can be pleasant when you're being paid to be there. All the grandeur with none of the crowds. Danielle and I did the ground floor, while Rory and Marta took the second. We worked efficiently. The maritime collection was well maintained anyway. Mainly, it was dust on the high surfaces, fingerprints on glass cases, a few scuff marks from a school visit earlier that week. We finished by 1:30. That's it, Rory said when we all met in the lobby. 6 nights, Danielle said. Tomorrow we do the deep work, skirting boards, light fittings. The quarterdeck needs waxing. Still, Rory said, easy money. We locked up and left. The night was clear and cool, and the 4th was black and flat beyond the harbor wall, and I drove home feeling that uncomplicated satisfaction of a job that goes right. Tuesday night, the second shift, is when it started, and I want to be precise about what I mean by started, because nothing dramatic happened. Nothing moved, nothing spoke, nothing appeared. What happened was subtler and honestly worse. We arrived at 9. I keyed us in. The alarm system accepted the code. Everything was as we'd left it. Danielle and I went back to the ground floor. Rory and Marta went up. About 40 minutes in, I was cleaning the glass on a case containing a 1780s sextant when Danielle, working about 15 meters away in the navigation gallery, called over to me, not urgently, conversationally. Cal, do you hear that? I stopped, listened. The building had its night sounds, the heating system cycling, the hum of the dehumidifiers in the permanent gallery, the occasional tick of the structure cooling. I'd cataloged those the night before. What Danielle was pointing to was underneath those sounds, a rhythm, irregular but sustained, not mechanical. Footsteps, I said. On the first floor, she said. We both looked up. The ceiling was old timber, thick but not soundproof. And she was right. There was movement above us, not heavy, not fast, but deliberate. Someone walking. Rory and Marta are on the second floor, I said. That's not the second floor, Danielle said. That's directly above us. First floor. She was right about that too. I knew where the staircases were. The second floor was offset. Its footprint extended over the rear of the building, but the first floor was directly above the ground floor galleries. If Rory and Marta were on the second, what we were hearing was on the first. Could be the construction crew left something running, I said. A fan or... That's footsteps, Cal. It was footsteps. I knew it was footsteps. I'd said the other thing because I didn't want it to be footsteps. I called Rory on the radio. He confirmed he and Marta were on the second floor in the whaling exhibition. They hadn't gone anywhere near the first. Probably nothing, I said to Danielle. Building settling. Sound travel's weird in old structures. She looked at me with a patience that was almost maternal. I've cleaned buildings for 20 years. I know what settling sounds like. That's feet. We listened for another minute. It stopped. We went back to work. Neither of us mentioned it again that night. Wednesday, third shift. This is the night I keep going back to. We arrived at 9. Keyed in. Normal. The four of us stood in the lobby, and I handed out the night's assignments. Danielle and Marta on the ground floor, waxing the quarterdeck reconstruction. Rory and I on the second floor. The whaling exhibition needed glass cleaning and floor mopping before the install team arrived Thursday morning. We split up. Rory and I went upstairs. The whaling exhibition was half built. Display cases in place, but some still empty. Information panels leaning against walls waiting to be hung. A full-size harpoon mounted on a wall bracket that caught the emergency lighting and gleamed. The space was large and open and very cold. Colder than it should have been. Christ, Rory said. They've got the climate control set for the Arctic. It's the artefacts, I said. Some of them need low temperatures. My fingers don't. We worked. Rory talked. About his girlfriend, about a podcast he'd listened to, about whether Edinburgh was better than Glasgow. He was from Glasgow. It was an ongoing bit. I was half listening, running a mop along the temporary flooring between display cases, when I noticed something. One of the cases, a tall, upright case on the north wall, contained a mannequin dressed in a whaler's cold weather gear, sealskin coat, thick wool underneath, a balaclava-type head covering, heavy gloves. The mannequin was posed looking slightly to the right, toward the center of the exhibition. A placard beside it read, "Typical cold weather dress, circa 1847. Reproduction." I noticed it because it was the only mannequin on this floor. The rest of the displays were artifacts, photographs, maps. Just this one figure. And something about it, not something I could have articulated then, not something I can fully articulate now, made me not want to turn my back to it. I didn't say anything to Rory. It was a mannequin. I was a 31-year-old man with a job to do. But I positioned myself so I could see it while I worked. At about 10:45, Rory went downstairs to refill our mop bucket. I was alone on the second floor. I was near the east wall, cleaning a display case that held a whaling logbook open to a page of meticulous handwriting, when I heard, clearly, unmistakably, a door close somewhere below me. Not downstairs where Danielle and Marta were. Below me and to the north. The first floor. And then, footsteps. The same rhythm Danielle had heard the night before. Unhurried, sustained, moving east to west across the first floor directly beneath where I was standing. I stood still. I held my breath without deciding to. The footsteps continued for perhaps 30 seconds, then stopped. Then I heard something else, a sound I had no framework for at the time and have struggled to describe since. The closest I can get is a long, slow exhalation, but amplified and resonant in a way that suggested a very large space, as if the first floor itself had breathed out. I left the second floor. I went down the stairwell. I passed the first floor door. Closed, locked, my keycode invalid, exactly as Petri had said. I continued down to the ground floor. Danielle and Marta were in the quarterdeck reconstruction, applying wax to the decking timbers. They looked up when I came in. "You all right?" Danielle said. "Did you hear anything just now? From upstairs?" Danielle and Marta exchanged a look. Then Marta spoke. "One of perhaps a dozen things," she said to me across the entire 6 nights. "We hear it every night," she said. "Danielle and I heard it Monday too. We didn't tell you because we thought it was you and Rory." "It's not us." "No," Marta said. "We know that now." Rory came back from the utility room with the bucket. He looked at the 3 of us standing there and said, "What's happened?" "Nothing," I said. "Let's finish up." We did finish. We left at 2. Outside in the car park, under the sodium lights, Rory said what we were all thinking. "Someone's in there, on the first floor. Some homeless person or a squatter or—" "The door's locked," I said. "Keycode access." And Petri said it's a construction zone. "So a construction worker left something," Rory said. "Or there's a cat. Or rats. I'm not being funny, Cal, but we've been hired to clean the place, not investigate weird noises." Danielle shook her head. "That's not rats." "I'm calling Petri tomorrow," I said. "I'll let him know. It's probably nothing, but it's his building." That was the reasonable thing. That was the professional thing. We all agreed and went home. Thursday morning, I called Petri. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. "Footsteps," he repeated after I explained. "On the first floor. Yes. 3 of us have heard them on separate nights." A pause. Then, "The first floor is empty. There's no one up there. The construction crew finished their phase 2 weeks ago, but they're not back until July. It'll be the pipework. The new HVAC system has an air bleed cycle that can sound like movement. I'll make a note to have it checked." "It sounds like footsteps," I said. "Specifically." "I appreciate you flagging it." His tone was the tone of a man ending a conversation. "If it persists, I'll have the engineers look at it next week. For now, stay out of the first floor as discussed and focus on your schedule. Is the quarterdeck done?" "Nearly." "Good. Thanks, Callum." He hung up. I almost didn't tell the others, but we were a crew, and keeping things from your crew is how trust breaks down. And trust was the only thing that made working in an empty building at night sustainable. So when we gathered on Thursday at 9, I told them what Petri said. "Air bleed," Rory said. "Fair enough." "You believe that?" Danielle said. "I believe it's not my problem," Rory said. "I believe I'm being paid to mop floors, not play Scooby-Doo." "Marta?" I said. She was pulling on her rubber gloves, methodical. Without looking up, she said, "I've cleaned hospitals, care homes, schools. Buildings have sounds. But I've never heard a building walk." That landed. We went to work. Thursday night, the sound was louder. Not dramatically. Not a crescendo. But the footsteps were more sustained. And they seemed to cover more of the first floor. Where before they'd been in one area, now they traversed the entire footprint, east to west and back. And there was something else. At irregular intervals, a faint dragging sound, as if something heavy was being pulled slowly across the floor. We heard it on the ground floor. We heard it on the second floor. We all heard it, all four of us, independently. When we gathered in the lobby at midnight for our scheduled break, nobody tried to explain it away. "I'm going to try the door," Rory said. "Your code won't work," I said. "I know. I just want to listen at it. See if it's clearer." "I'll come with you," Danielle said. They went. Marta and I sat in the lobby. She drank tea from a thermos. I stared at the floor and tried to think of what a team lead should do. "You feel it too," Marta said. Not a question. "Feel what?" "That there's something wrong with this job. Not the sounds. Before the sounds. The way they gave it to us." I looked at her. "A 4-person crew for a 6-night clean of a 2-floor museum," she said. "That's overstaffed by half. The previous team walked off. Petrie showed us 10% of the building and told us to ignore the rest, and they're paying premium rate." "You think they know," I said. "I think they know more than they told us, and I think whatever the previous crew experienced was bad enough that they left, and nobody at Brightstar thought to ask why." Tapped. Rory and Danielle came back. Rory was pale. "We stood at the door," he said. "First floor landing. Listened for maybe 2 minutes. And? It's not pipework, Cal. There's someone in there, moving around. You can hear?" He stopped, swallowed. "You can hear them touching the walls." "I'm going to skip Friday, the 5th night, in the sense that I'm not going to describe it in detail. What I'll say is this: the sounds were louder and more varied, and at one point, at approximately 11:40 p.m., all 4 of us were on the ground floor when we heard, very clearly, from the first floor landing stairwell, 3 distinct knocks on the inside of the locked door. Not the sound of pipes, not the sound of air. 3 knocks, spaced evenly, deliberate. Nobody spoke for a long time after that. We left early. At 1 instead of 3. In the car park, Danielle said, "I'm not coming back tomorrow." "It's the last night," I said. "I know. I'm not coming back." "Dan, I've got grandchildren, Cal. I'm not doing this." I couldn't argue with her. I didn't try. Rory said he was still in. Marta said nothing, which I took to mean she'd be there. Saturday, the last night. This is what I actually need to tell you. I arrived at 8:50. Rory was already there, leaning against his car, smoking. Marta pulled in at 8:55. 3 of us. "Danielle texted me," Rory said. "She said to be careful." "Careful of what?" I said. He shrugged. "She didn't say." We went in. I keyed the alarm. The building was dark and still, and for the first few minutes, silent. Completely silent. No HVAC hum, no dehumidifiers, no footsteps from above. Just the 3 of us and the sound of our own movement. "That's worse," Rory said. "Isn't it? The quiet is worse." It was worse. We went to the ground floor. We had specific tasks. Final sign-off stuff, checking for missed spots, buffing the quarterdeck, photographing completion for Brightstar's records. We worked in near silence. Even Rory wasn't talking. At 10:15, I went to the utility cupboard on the ground floor's south corridor to get a fresh bottle of glass cleaner. The cupboard was small. Brooms, mops, chemicals on shelves, a slop sink. I opened it, reached for the bottle, and stopped. There was a smell. Not chemical. Organic. Old. Like the inside of a charity shop, but concentrated. Like clothes that had been sealed in a case for a very long time and then suddenly opened. I took the glass cleaner and closed the cupboard. When I turned around, Marta was standing about 3 meters behind me in the corridor. I hadn't heard her approach. "You smell it," she said. "Yes." "It's getting stronger. It was in the quarterdeck area 10 minutes ago." "What is it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Callum, I want to show you something." She led me to the main stairwell. We stood at the bottom, looking up. The stairs rose in a squared spiral. Ground to first, first to second, second to third. The first floor door was a fire door, solid, with a keypad lock. "I came early tonight," Marta said. "I was here at 8:30, before you and Rory." "Okay." The first floor door was open. I stared at her. Open. Standing open, about a foot. I could see through to the first floor. The lights were off, but there was enough from the stairwell to see the first few meters. "What did you see?" "Nothing. Empty space. No partition walls. No exposed ductwork. No construction. Just empty floor. Bare concrete. Nothing in there at all." Petri said. "I know what Petri said. There's no renovation. There never was. The first floor is empty." "Then what's been walking?" Marta looked at me with her steady, serious face. I closed the door. I pulled it shut. It locked. "Why didn't you tell me when I arrived?" "Because I wanted to give you the choice of whether to know. Now you know. And now you need to decide what we do." This is the part that matters. This is where I need you to understand the decision I made and why I made it. We had 2 hours left on a contract. We could leave. We could walk out, forfeit the final night's pay, call Brightstar on Monday, and say the job was done minus 1 shift. Nobody would die. Nobody would be hurt. The museum would sit empty until Monday morning, when the day staff arrived, and whatever was on the first floor, would be someone else's problem. Or I could go up there. I know how that sounds. I know the version of this story where the protagonist goes to investigate, and something terrible happens, and the moral is don't go looking. I've read those stories. I know the shape of them. But here's what those stories don't account for. I was responsible for this crew. Rory was 26 years old. Marta had come in early, alone, and seen that door open, and closed it by herself, and waited half an hour before telling me. These were people in my care, contractually and actually, and if there was something in this building, a person, an animal, a hazard, and I walked away from it, and someone from the day staff encountered it on Monday, that was on me. Not morally in some abstract sense, literally. My name was on the sign-off sheet. My key code opened the building. If anything went wrong, the paperwork traced back to me. I told Marta I was going to the first floor. "I know," she said. "I need you to stay with Rory. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, I'm coming with you," she said. "Marta, you don't get to choose that for me." I wanted to argue. I didn't. She was a grown woman with more years and more experience than me, and she'd already been up there alone, in a sense. She'd stood at that open door by herself and made a choice. Her choice now was the same as mine. We went and got Rory. I told him what Marta had told me. His face did something complicated. Fear and anger and excitement all at once. "I'm in," he said. Immediately. No hesitation. "Rory? Don't give me the speech, Cal. I'm in." 3 of us then. We went up the stairwell. The smell was stronger here. That old textile smell, like mothballs and lanolin, and something underneath that I couldn't name. The stairwell lighting was fluorescent, buzzing faintly, casting everything in pale blue-white. We reached the first floor door. Closed, locked. The keypad glowed red. I entered my code, the one Petri said wouldn't work. The pad beeped. The light turned green. The lock clicked. Marta looked at me. "It always worked," she said. He lied. I pushed the door open. The first floor was dark. Not completely. The stairwell light cut in and showed the first few meters, and at the far end, the high warehouse windows let in the ambient glow of the Leith waterfront. Enough to see by. enough to see that Marta was right. No renovation, no construction, no partition walls, no exposed ductwork, no lifted flooring. Just a vast, empty space, bare concrete floor, brick walls, iron columns at regular intervals holding up the ceiling, and the ceiling itself, old timber, the underside of the second floor. Empty? Except it wasn't empty, because the smell was overpowering here. That dense, organic, sealed for decades smell. And because I could see, at the far end of the space, near the north wall, something. Not moving, not standing, just present. Rory found a light switch by the door. He flicked it. Nothing happened. He flicked it again. Breaker's off, Marta said, or disconnected. I had a torch. A proper mag light, part of the kit Brightstar provided. I switched it on and pointed it down the length of the first floor. The beam reached the far wall, and in its light, I saw what was there. I'm going to describe this as clearly as I can. Along the north wall of the first floor, arranged in a row approximately 30 meters long, were display cases. Glass-fronted, museum-standard, climate-controlled display cases, perhaps 20 of them. They were not part of the renovation that wasn't happening. They were old. Wooden frames, slightly yellowed glass, brass fittings tarnished green. They looked like they'd been there for decades. Each case contained a mannequin. No, that's not right. I said mannequin because that's what my mind reached for. The wailing mannequin on the second floor. The familiar shape of a figure dressed for display. But these weren't mannequins in any commercial sense. They were forms. Human-shaped forms, dressed in period clothing. Heavy coats, wool, canvas, oilskin. Standing upright in their cases, facing outward, arranged at regular intervals like a gallery of figures. There were no placards, no information panels, no dates or descriptions, just the cases and the figures and the smell. What the fuck, Rory said very quietly. I moved closer. The torch beam steadied on the nearest case. The figure inside was wearing a naval greatcoat, dark blue, brass buttons corroded. Beneath it, a white shirt gone yellow. The figure's head was covered, wrapped in what looked like linen, dirty and stiff, concealing the face entirely. They're all like that, Marta said. She was walking along the row, looking into each case. All wrapped, all covered. Are they wax? Rory said. Are they plaster? I stepped closer to the nearest case, put my torch right up against the glass, looked at the figure's hands. The only exposed skin, if that's what it was. The hands hung at the figure's sides, slightly curled. The hands were not wax. They were not plaster. They were brown and dried and drawn tight over bone and tendon. They were the hands of something that had once been alive. We need to leave, I said. Cal? Now. We need to leave now. I don't know what they are. I don't know who they were. I don't know how long they've been there, sealed in those cases, wrapped in linen, arranged in a row on a floor that the museum pretends doesn't exist. I don't know if the previous cleaning crew saw them. I don't know if that's why they left. What I know is this. As we turned to leave, as the three of us moved back toward the stairwell door, I swept my torch once more across the floor, and I saw in the dust on the concrete, in the thick, gray, undisturbed dust that covered the entire first floor. Footprints. Not ours. We'd walked in a straight line from the door to the cases. These footprints were everywhere, crossing the space in all directions, overlapping, dozens, maybe hundreds, of tracks, all the same size, all bare feet, all pressed deep into the dust, as if made by something very heavy. And they were fresh. The edges were sharp. The dust hadn't settled back into them. Something walks on the first floor of the Holgate Museum every night. Something that, during the day, stands motionless in a glass case. We left. We locked the door behind us. We went down the stairs, through the lobby, out into the May night. I locked the building. My hands were steady. Rory's were not. In the car park, nobody spoke for a long time. Then Rory said, "We report this." "To who?" I said. "Bright Star, the council, the police. Those are—" He stopped. "Those are people. In those cases. Those are actual human remains." "You think the police don't know?" Marta said. She said it calmly, without heat. "You think the museum is hiding preserved human bodies on a floor that's accessible by a key code the cleaning crew already has, and nobody in authority has noticed in however many decades those cases have been there." Rory stared at her. "Petrie lied about the renovation," Marta continued. "He lied about the key code. He didn't lie because he's covering up a crime. He lied because whatever those things are, they're known about, and they're managed, and the management consists of no one goes up there at night." "But they walk," Rory said. "They're walking around up there every night." "And they stay up there," Marta said. "They walk and they go back to their cases. Every morning the day staff come in and everything is normal. The system works. It's been working for God knows how long, until we started hearing it." "So what?" "We just pretend we didn't see it." Marta looked at him, then at me. She pulled her gloves off, folded them precisely, put them in her coat pocket. "You asked me on the first night if I felt something was wrong with this job," she said to me. I said yes, and I was right. The job was wrong, because it put us somewhere we weren't supposed to be at a time we weren't supposed to be there. But the question isn't whether what we saw is wrong. The question is whether it's ours. I submitted the sign-off paperwork to Bright Star on Monday. 6 nights completed. All areas within scope cleaned to standard. No issues flagged. Rory didn't speak to me for a week afterward. Then he called me, and we talked for a long time. And at the end, he said, "I looked the museum up. The Holgate. It was founded in 1887. They have a collection of over 4,000 items. Know what the original collection was? Before the maritime stuff?" "What?" "Ethnographic. Victorian ethnographic collection. Human remains from whaling expeditions, trading posts, colonial acquisitions, all deaccessioned in the 1960s. Officially returned or destroyed." "Officially?" "Yeah." A long silence. "Marta was right," Rory said. "It's not ours." "Is it anyone's?" I said. He didn't answer. "I don't know what the right thing to do is. I'm telling you because I don't know. There are people, or what used to be people, on the first floor of a museum in Edinburgh, and at night they walk, and during the day they stand still, and the institution that keeps them has decided that the appropriate response is to never look and never tell. And I participated in that. I signed the sheet. I locked the door. And the thing that keeps me awake, the thing I need to say before I lose the nerve to say it, is that on that last night, when I swept my torch across the floor and saw those footprints, I saw something else too. Something I didn't tell Rory. Something I didn't tell Marta. The footprints came to the door. All of them. Every set of tracks in that dust led eventually to the stairwell door. They walked all night, and every night they walked to the door, and on the inside of the door, the side we couldn't have seen before we opened it, there were marks in the paint, scratches, thousands of them, layer on layer, years and years of scratches, like fingernails on a chalkboard. They walk every night, and every night they try the door. And on Thursday night, the night Marta came early, the door was open. I don't know who opened it. I don't know if it was a malfunction, or a timer, or whether one of them finally found a way. I don't know what would have happened if Marta hadn't closed it. And I don't know if it'll hold. That's what I need you to know. That's why I'm writing this. Not because I want advice, or sympathy, or to go viral, but because if you live in Edinburgh, or if you're near Leith, or if you've ever been in the Holgate Museum of Maritime History on a quiet weekday when the staff seem tense and the first floor is always closed, I need you to know that the door held every night we were there. I need you to know that, because I'm not sure it still does.